Hi there, it's Jennifer, and today I'm going to take you through some variations for Thunderbolt Pose. It's also known as Vajrasana. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. And this is for David. So because I find this pose can be quite intense on your knees and on your ankle joints, I thought it would be a good idea to start with showing you some exercises or some poses that you can do to help loosen up the joints. And you'll also need a few props. With me today I have a throw pillow, I have 2 yoga blocks, and I have a rolled up mat. You can also use a blanket or a towel instead of a rolled up mat or the throw pillow, but this just happens to be what I have close at hand today. So I mentioned it being challenging or can be quite intense for your knees and on your ankles. I will say that if you do have a knee injury, you want to avoid this pose. However, if you find you can be in child's pose very comfortably, or even this position I was just in, go ahead and do this. However, I will show you a couple of ways to use the props to help with the stress that you might feel on your knees. So again, ankle mobility and flexibility may not be very prevalent. So what you can do is to loosen up your ankle joints and stretch them a little bit. So you can come into a seated position and just circle your feet, circling through your ankles, both directions. You can hear all the cricking and cracking here. And then you can think about flexing, pushing through the balls of your feet and the heels, and then reaching your toes away from you just to stretch your ankles out. You could even choose to do this same pointing and flexing in a standing position, where you just rest your toes down and put a little bit of pressure, as much as you can comfortably bear, and feel a stretch. Now for your knees, a quad stretch would be a really great way to loosen up the muscle fibers of the front of your thighs. And you can do this seated, and you can also do it in a lying position, and I'll show you both. So seated, you can take one leg, bend your knee, and bring it back like this. And just sitting in this position here, you will feel a stretch. If you wanted to take it a little bit further, you could always lean back, and I'll show you sideways. So you can bend one knee back, and this is actually half of the posture that we're doing now. So if you were working your way up to the full expression of Thunderbolt, I think this would be a great way to start getting used to the idea of having your leg in this position as well as your ankle, if it is not something that you are accustomed doing. So as I mentioned, you can stay in this position here if you wanted to intensify the stretch to open up your quads a little bit more, and therefore even loosen up the knee joint a little bit more. You could come back just a little bit, and that makes it a little bit more intense. Always pay attention to how your body's responding and honor that. You should not feel any pain. Most you should be feeling here is a stretch. And depending on how open you are, you can go a little bit further back. Always be mindful of keeping your tummy pulled in, your ribs in, and keeping your chest lifted. You want to avoid sinking into your shoulders, because that can cause you to dump into your lower back. So those are a couple of things you can do to get your body ready to sit in Thunderbolt Pose. So those are the stretches to warm you up. And now we're going to move on to how you can use props to help make the shape more accessible. So I mentioned if you have knee injuries, we're going to avoid it. But if your knees, you can bend your knees and be quite comfortable, but want to find a bit more comfort, we can use these props to make the pose more comfortable for you. So the first thing we're going to do is I'll show you with yoga blocks. I have 2 blocks here, and you can get as many or use as little blocks as you need. So you'll stack the blocks one on top of the next, and then you'll have a seat on the block. So you can choose to have the blocks lengthways, or you can choose to have it this way. I'm going to do it this way because you want to keep your heels close to your hips, so it probably would be better for you to stack them this way. So then you're going to sit on the blocks. They're going to be between your heels. And what this does, this has a double effect, if you will. It lessens the degree of the angle at your knee joint, and it also alleviates the intensity of the stretch at your ankles. Now you could start, and you want to place your hands on your knees, and you're going to sit up nice and tall. So you want the natural curve of your spine to be present. So you're not slouching and you're not overarching in your spine. You're pulling your ribs in and maintaining a nice neutral spine and pelvis. So you could start say you're choosing this pose for meditation, you could start with the 2 blocks. And as you started to feel more comfortable, you could remove one of the blocks. And that is going to increase the intensity of the stretch at your ankle, and it's also, as you would have noticed, increase the bend at your knee joint. And if, after practicing this pose for a few weeks, and you start to feel more open in your ankles and more open in your knees, you might not even need the block anymore, and you can remove the block completely and just sit in the pose. The heels are going to be slightly on the outside of your hips. And I'll just turn around to let you see what that looks like with the blocks. Get them stacked here. Good. So, how can we use the pillow or the mat? Similar way that we would, or similar reason for using the blocks, just in a different way. So the throw pillow, you can fold it in half, like so, and you'll place it at the back of your knees. I actually prefer the use of the block because this is putting a lot of pressure on my calf muscles, but a towel or a rolled up blanket might feel more comfortable. But this is what I had close at hand, so this is what I'm using. So if you fold your throw pillow in half, or you roll your blanket up so it looks like this, like the mat, you would wedge that to the back of your knee. Similarly, you could fold your blanket maybe once or twice, or use the throw pillow if it's quite flat like this, underneath your ankle. And that will take away some of the tension that you're feeling on your ankle bone, on your ankle muscles, on your ankle joint right here. The rolled up mat, as you would have guessed by now, utilize the same way. This mat is quite thick and quite squishy, but it's again the one mat that I had nearby. So again, you'd wedge it behind your knees and sit back. So you can see how you're getting a similar effect to using the yoga blocks. Okay? So that is some stretches that you can do to warm up your joints, some ways you can use props to make the pose more accessible, and now I'll show you some variations. So of course we have this option here where you stretch your ankles out and your toes are long, but then there's another version you can do where you curl your toes under. And this is, for me personally, it's a really intense stretch. So you want to get all of your toes, including your baby toe, on the mat. And you sit back on your heels. Again, very intense. You could use the blocks here. You could use the mat in any of the ways that I just showed you. So you rest your hands on your knees just as you would if you were extended to your ankle and your toes. Really opens up the soles of your feet as well, and it's an incredible stretch for your toes. Something we don't think about doing very often, so it's nice to do this. Another way you could bend your toes is the opposite way. I don't think I'm going to do this because my toes are really talking to me and not in a good way, but it is an option that one can take. Not for me, however, but it's the same idea. Toes are tucked this way and you sit back on your heels. Yeah. I forgot to mention, if you chose to curl your toes under or the other way, to lessen the intensity of the stretch through your toes, you can always lean forward. So coming forward in this position will take off some of the pressure. The more you sit upright, the more pressure you will feel. So the other option you can try is, and I believe David you asked about this specifically, is the crossing of your feet. And I want to say that, so basically what you want to do is place the top of your foot, the arch, into the arch of the bottom foot, and it fits perfectly. And I'll show you now. So I'll turn around. So you'll take one foot and place the top of the arch into the bottom arch of the opposite foot. And you're gonna come into the position. The foot that's on top, that ankle is getting a major stretch. It actually feels really good. So your heels are out by the side, and you're crossing one foot into the next, and it fits like a glove. Then you can change sides or change feet. Again, it fits in there nice and snug. And then you sit back. So this side isn't as comfortable for me as the other side, but that's it. So that's your Thunderbolt or Diamond Pose or Vajrasana. That's it. So this is a pose that you can definitely do in meditation. You can sit up on your zafu, or you can have the meditation bench. It's the same shape, and actually, yeah, it's the same. The meditation bench would give you the same shape as if you were on the blocks or on your mat, with the roll-up mat behind your knees. So I hope that was helpful. And if you have any other questions, feel free to drop me a message. Thank you so much for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day. Namaste.